let's get started. So, as I said, welcome to the introductory webinar this morning. The webinar is probably going to take about 30 minutes, and during that we'll take a look at what the LRN is, who we are, how the LRN creates value through facilitating multi-stakeholder partnerships, and also can open up to ask any questions that you have around the local resources network, the stakeholders involved, and so on. So the purpose, I'm not going to read through these. By the way, I will send out the slides at the end if anyone's wondering about that already at this stage. So the LRN came about in 2007 when the members of the Ethical Trading Initiative in the UK discovered that they needed an easy way to find local partners to help them implement supply chain improvements. The idea was quite simple. It's how can we engage with relevant experts on the ground to realise that the improvements that that we need to make in our factories on the farms that produce the goods that we sell. So started off with a database, and as is often the case, that database was basically an Excel file. And the Excel file was passed around from company to company over the next few years, really until somebody said, well, hang on a minute, we need to stop doing this. We need to stop sending around this Excel file. We need something which is online, which is easily updated, which is accessible in real time to everybody. So that's when the local resources network, as it is today, was created. So about 10 years later now, well 9 years later as we are, this online database is still developing, and it's in the process of becoming a network of local experts, sourcing companies, trade unions, governmental agencies, suppliers and business associations, and also a rich source of information about local initiatives, which we'll have a quick look at a bit later. And we also provide some additional resources, local risk intelligence, what we call then country briefings, which I'll also talk about shortly. So let's have a quick look at those in a bit more detail. We're basically a very, very small team. There's myself and my two colleagues, Leonie and Katrina. So we are the secretariat, which then sort of have all the sort of the operational responsibilities, and we're managed by the management committee. So the management committee is basically the committee that's comprised of a representative from each of the ethical trading initiatives in the UK, Denmark, and Norway. The management committee then sort of does all the sort of the more strategic work, does a lot of sort of quality assurance for the stuff that we're producing in the secretariat, and also then have responsibility for both promoting the LRN in their respective networks and for ensuring the financial stability of the network. So the LRN is a networking platform, as I mentioned, set up to provide opportunities for sharing local knowledge and expertise on ethical trade issues in countries around the world. So we add value to human rights, environmental and social risks, risk assessments in sort of three core areas. So the first one is then through connecting people through the global network, both online and also at local events. So I'll talk a little bit about the kind of events that we run shortly. The next one then is through, once these people are connected, through fostering some kind of collaboration, and collaboration through a multi-stakeholder approach, both in terms of business partnerships that are built throughout the network, and also then through promoting local initiatives to members of the local resources network. And finally, through providing insight or knowledge to support the due diligence processes internally, both through the country briefings that we offer, and then also through experience exchange events that we run, both through as webinars and then also locally. We can have a look at these now in a bit more detail. So the connections part of it is essentially the database. And as I said, this was kind of the main reason why the LRM was born in 2007. The online database makes it easier to identify and connect with organizations in sourcing markets that can support companies with their ethical trade work. The database is growing, and it's our aim to have a comprehensive number of organizations in all key sourcing markets over the next few years. Currently, we we have approximately 200 members with coverage in most major sourcing countries. We're about 55 countries globally. And as I said, we want to expand. Our aim is to double this over the next 12 months, focusing on building the network in key sourcing and production countries around the world. Advisors can offer a range of impact assessments. So we have both the advisor, consultant, NGO element, what we call advisors, and then also then sourcing companies who are looking to procure their services or to engage. Some of these organizations are not necessarily taking a fee for their services. Some are very happy to be involved and to sort of to see their role in a multi-stakeholder dialogue being realised. So advisors offer a range of impact assessments, due diligence services within quite a wide spectrum of expertise areas. Everything sort of from freedom of association, collective bargaining, independent worker elections, to remediation of child labour and forced labour. Some have particular sort of niche expertise within feedback and grievance mechanisms. Others provide training in worker management dialogue. Some focus purely on sort of productivity, business improvements, and then in addition, then we have some sort of academic research. A number of organisations that are keen then to also recruit on local remediation projects such as the HER project. One of the important things to mention, and one of the ways in which we sort of see the LRN as being unique in comparison to other networks, is that we do conduct quality assurance of the local organisations, the local advisors within the system. So we do ask for references, we follow up the references, we check them, and we do some sort of background sort of due diligence checks on the organisations through internet searches and so on. Just to give some sort of added confidence really in the legitimacy of the local organisation, and also to check for perhaps religious or political affiliations which are not necessarily desired by other stakeholders or can cause some sort of friction in a stakeholder engagement process. An important thing to mention just sort of at the end of this is that the word of mouth is how the network has been built up so far, and we really do value recommendations and tips from partners and other stakeholders around the organisations that could be an asset to the network. So if you've got any experience of working with specific organisations, feel that they could add value to the network, or vice versa, the network could sort of add value to their services, to their to the way they work locally, then please feel free to send us their details, and we'll follow up from our end. So in addition to an online network, we also run events. So this year we've already run an event in Pakistan, and we're looking now to run an event in Turkey later this year in collaboration with the Ethical Trade Initiative in the UK. In addition to this, then we're sort of liaising closely with our members over the next few months to identify other locations for events next year. So yeah, next year. An example of how the local resources network has worked for one particular company, which is Eurosco. It's a Norwegian-based company, a shoe company, and they basically wanted to they were started off as they needed an audit, quite simply. They were starting off, they were relatively new in China, they're looking for an auditor, and a simple internet search came up with hundreds of results. They didn't know who to go for, they had no kind of references, so they came to the local resources network where they could find where they could find an audit company who had been reference checked, and who was sort of familiar to us from being within our network, both in the local resources network, but also having worked closely with the ethical trading initiatives. So a year ago joined the local resources network. They found Taos. They conducted their audit. And they've worked together on quite a number of projects since that. And so now Taos are working more closely with Eurosco and their local representatives in China to helping them to learn how to undertake second-party audits and monitoring visits as part of their overall responsible supply chain program. As I mentioned earlier, as part of the building business partnerships is also then promoting local initiatives, and an example I gave before was the BSR HER project. So the BSR HER project is currently operating in around 14 countries, and is focused then on health and education for females, and also they have a new initiative, Her Finance, which is sort of a microfinancing initiative to help female entrepreneurs establish businesses locally. Interestingly enough, also on the background of this, I was recently reading a report by McKinsey who was saying that sort of estimated that improving female labour participation can add approximately 12 trillion US dollars to the global economy by 2025. So and health, education and finance issues are three key measures to ensure that happens. So so it's, again, I mean, an excellent project, and one that we're actively promoting within our network. One of the things I also mentioned earlier was then our country briefings, the risk intelligence that we provide, country-based risk intelligence, and this was kind of born out of a dialogue basically with members of the ethical training initiatives during training programs. And one of the things that became evident was that there is a huge amount of risk intelligence or data that's available within the public sphere, but the quality varies considerably, the depth of information varies considerably. The majority of sources only focus on particular issues. So a classic example would be the US State Department's focus on trafficking in persons, forced labour and child labour. So there's a huge amount of information available around those particular things, but then the question then is, yeah, but what about the other things? What about marginalised populations? What about environmental management? And then those kind of things you have to go to other sources to find. So the aim of the country briefings has been to provide a synthesis of this information that's already available in the public sphere. So we haven't done any primary research of our own. All we've basically done is selected what we see as being legitimate sources within the field, and synthesizing that data, providing short, simple risk intelligence for our members that can easily be used in their due diligence processes internally. One of the things that we do with the country briefings is to do a quick check with a couple of the local resources that are in the local resource network. So at the moment, I've just finished now with the China briefing, which is already available. You can already download it from the website. I'll also be focusing a little bit of that on our webinar on Thursday. And as part of that process, then I sent that off to the Ethical Trade Initiatives office in China, I got some feedback from them there, and also some feedback from a couple of professors who are working within the field of human rights due diligence in China. In China, so that was great. It's great to get some feedback. Great to get some a response and say that yes, this is correct. This is legitimate. You can publish this, and that's the process that we follow for all of the country briefings. The country briefings we have at the moment, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but we have country briefings for Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and China. And at the end of this month we'll be launching Myanmar, and next month we'll be launching Turkey, and then I'm also working then on South Africa and Vietnam as well. So that's kind of what we'll be focusing on this year, and again engaging with our members to find out which countries we should be focusing on next year. So the big question, does it work? Well, feedback feedback is good. I mean, although we've been around for a while, it's only really this year that the Local Resources Network has really started to take off, and we've really started to have a sort of a focused and concerted effort towards trying to build the network. So Louise Nichols, from the head of Responsible Sourcing at Marks & Spencer, said that they've used the Local Resources Network. They are members of the LRN, used it to find local partners. Many countries have been pleased with the professionalism and quality of output. Again, coming back to TARS, looking at sort of the advisor perspective, TARS have said that they perceive it as a valuable network connecting the organisation to the global social compliance network or community, and it's an effective facilitator for business partnerships for them. So that's sort of hearing from two members. Who can join? So we try to embrace, or we don't try, we do embrace the multi-stakeholder ethos of the ethical trading initiatives, and again, one of the main objectives is to bring relevant partners together. Now, who is relevant in particular scenarios is something that we sort of leave up to the partners to decide, but we try to make sure that we have coverage for a wide range of stakeholder groups in each country. So here are the main stakeholder groups that we've identified: trade unions, NGOs, business associations, industry sector initiatives. We also want as many suppliers as possible in the network, so that they can have a voice, so that they're visible as part of the stakeholder dialogue process, but also so that for the suppliers who perhaps are a little more proactive, they can actually search for their own advisors, their own partners around remediation projects. Take initiative to do that themselves without necessarily coming from a buying company. Buying companies then obviously are the sort of the main, if you like, call it procurer of services, but maybe those that take, perhaps that's also, as I said, that's also perhaps the wrong way to look at it, but more of somebody who they maybe take the initial initiative to gather people around the table to discuss remediation. A wide range of consultants, and unsurprisingly perhaps this is the largest group. As you sort of remember from Tars's quote, for them it's sort of a good way to engage with the global social compliance community, because of course they want to offer their services. So for them it's a perfect sort of marketing network. As I said, we do check references, so there is a sort of a certain degree at least of confidence in that these are consultants that can deliver what they say they can deliver. And then finally, government agencies and institutions. So how much does it cost? Well, we have an annual fee, and for trade unions, national and federations, it's free. For local employees organisations, services providers, the consultants and so on, we charge £50 per year. and as you can see there, we do offer the possibility of a waiver for certain sort of small NGOs. Local suppliers, £75, and then sourcing companies, governmental bodies and institutions, we charge £150 if they're already a member of one of the ethical trading initiatives. Let's say, in other words, the ethical trading initiative in Denmark, Norway, or the UK, and £300 if they're not a member of one of the ethical trading initiatives. Okay, that basically sums it up from my perspective. Just sort of a couple of things. I mean, well, it'd be nice now to open up for a couple of questions. There aren't so many people here this morning. So I'm very happy to open up. We can even, if you want to sort of raise your hand, I can open up the microphone. If you prefer to write in the question box, we can do that. One of the things that's interesting for me to get some feedback on is, are these the right kind of services? How can we add more value for your company or organization? Are there any ways in which you feel we can improve the service offering we have, or make it more relevant in a sort of the social compliance, within a sort of a social compliance framework? Okay. Feel free to either raise your hand or to ask a question. Let's have a look. A couple of people saying, can we get the PowerPoint afterwards? Yes, definitely. I'll send that out. Any other questions? Okay, one of the questions is, are the country briefings industry specific? No, they're not. What we do is, what I've done is that the country briefings are specific to a country, and then where there are specific, so what we do is we do it's a description of risks for particular areas. So we cover all the 12 elements of the base code for the ethical trading initiative in Norway. So that is forced labour, child labour, discrimination, freedom of association, collective bargaining, environmental management, HSE, marginalised populations, harsh and inhumane treatment, and so on. So what we do is within these areas, if there are specific risks associated with specific industries, so for mining, for example, then I will draw attention to this when I write the due diligence tips or guidance. So there's a description of the risk, and then there are what I've called due diligence hotspots, which are particular areas to focus on, and these can be industry specific. And then there's a list of due diligence guidance, in other words, how to perform due diligence around these particular risks. And they can also be industry specific if there are industry specific risks associated with this. I hope that answers the question. Okay, any other questions? How is the LRN linked with the ETI's work more specifically? Well, essentially the local resources network is, we describe ourselves as an additional resource for the ethical trade initiative's members. So we're not sort of linked. We're not sort of linked specifically. There's no. I mean, we've done most of our marketing towards ethical training initiative members, So in a way, it's kind of natural. We hope it becomes increasingly natural that when the Ethical Trade Initiative members perceive a need to either assess risk in their supply chains or to implement some kind of remediation measures, that they would naturally go to the local resources network to find partners to do that. Particularly those that are perhaps newer to ethical trade. For those that have been doing it for sort of 10, 15 years, then in many cases they have well-established business relationships with partners already. But those that are sort of newer to the field, then it's a great place to go in and to find local partners. Yeah. So we're also there in training programs. We'd be, for example, now I mentioned Turkey. We'll be going to Turkey now in October, perhaps November, not quite sure yet, to work with the Ethical Trade Initiative there. So the Ethical Trade Initiative there are looking to launch quite a sort of a large project in Turkey, and we've been invited to come along and to present a little bit around the Local Resources Network, what it is, and how we work and how we can support both ETI members working in Turkey, but also how we can support the sort of the ethical trade community or the social compliance community in Turkey. So. Which city is ETI's office in China? It's a really good question, and it's not one I have an answer to, I'm afraid. I don't know. I know you. I know the representative. Her name is Yun, but I don't know which. I can find that out for you. That's no problem. I will find it out and send it out. Make a note of that. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Well, then I think I will wrap it up there. And say thank you very much for spending half an hour of your Tuesday morning listening to me and learning a bit more about the Local Resources Network. If you have any questions after we've finished, then please feel free just to drop us an email at lrn@localresourcesnetwork.net. You can also go in and visit our website, and if you do that again towards the end of this month, you'll notice that the website has changed dramatically. We'll be launching, it's a soft launch, so we're not sort of going out and sort of shouting about it, but we're launching a completely new website, completely new look and feel, much better search functionality, much better sort of access from tablets and mobiles, and that's going to be launched then towards the end of the month. So if you go in there today and then go in at the end of September, and you can see the difference. Okay, thanks again, and have a great day. Thanks.